Captain's log 11:03:26. So I'm just heading home from work right now. I'm going to stop at Costco on the way home. Shout out to Costco. Fuck yeah. So I wanted to talk about the state of affairs in, at least in Canada, but in the West, for tradesmen and construction workers and Delta men, basically in general, and kind of where we're at. But there was a couple other things I wanted to touch on as well. So this might be kind of all over the map, this one. And whatever, that's okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is just seeing some of the stuff coming out from the war in Iran, and a lot of people think that this is going to be whatever, over quick and this and that. Probably not. If you look how every other one of these wars that the U.S. has gotten into has unfolded, look at Vietnam, look at Iraq. It's the same shit every time. They, it's going to be, a few days of whatever, striking targets, and then they're going to capitulate. That turns into a few weeks, turns into a few months, and then 20 years go by, and you're trying to pull guys out of the sandbox still, and yeah, pretty big mess. So Iran's not Iraq. They are a whole different beast, and the big thing for us, like even for countries not involved, like in Canada here, for us tradesmen and stuff, this has a huge effect on like material, the fuel, energy, anything. Like everything has to do with fuel and energy. So yeah, we're gonna get affected. It's gonna affect us directly, even if we're not involved in any of the conflict itself. Unfortunately, it is what it is, and that's like, I understand. Well, people always have something to say, like, well, just be thankful you're not over there, and blah blah. It's like, yeah, I know, obviously, but at the same time, we're affected as well in what we're doing, and that's what I talk about. So yeah, I get it. So already with I'm going to try to segue here if I can. I'm going to try to mesh this all together, because it does all have consequences that affect Delta guys and what we do. And one of the things that I was going to talk about today was like the idea of how society sees Delta guys, construction workers, etc. I think sometimes now, sorry, my shit's gonna be shaky because I'm driving on these roads that are all chopped up from winter, and we keep using cheaper and cheaper asphalt in Canada, which is crazy. But anyways, so you're gonna have to deal with it. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll get back on topic. So yeah, society sometimes looks at these guys maybe as less than, or they're just completely invisible and all that. And then at some point in recent times here, with the advent of AI, the whole notion of certain types of jobs going obsolete came up, and all of a sudden there was a bit of a spotlight on people who work with their hands and people who physically have to go do stuff. And it's like, well, AI can't take those jobs right away. They like, or ever sometimes, but uh, and we had this little tiny glimpse of like, oh, okay, well, that's that's the type of job that, hey, it can't be taken from you, and it's going to be a need, and we need all these things done uh, to whatever, to support society, to build the buildings, fix things, etc. All, like, obviously, like you and I both know, but all the stuff that we do, right? um, Society for the longest time ignored us, but it's all the shit, all the basic shit that you wouldn't have society without us. If somebody wasn't there to make the water run, people would die within days. It's as simple as that. There's literally no other job that that would happen. Maybe healthcare, but even those people would probably last longer with water than they would with healthcare. So like, unless they're hooked up to a machine and the power goes out, which again is tradesmen, so whatever. Anyways, so yeah, society kind of ignores those people often, which is whatever. Like, you're not doing it for praise. Like, we all want to make money, we all want to have a good life, but all of a sudden, with the talk of AI, these people came up. The Delta guys, the guys doing all this physical work, were being talked about. And what they were also talking about was universal basic income, and talking about well, what are all these people going to do? And it's funny because nobody's said like, well, hey, maybe you should learn a skill that involves whatever. Maybe tradesmen should be paid more so that more people want to go into that. Nobody really said that. Everybody started to say, well, we deserve to get paid because AI is taking our jobs, and whatever. I don't really have an opinion on that right now, to be honest. But what I do know is, like, why, and this is going on right now. So this is basically the crux of what I want to talk about. So we have people who go to work every day and do trades jobs, do whatever, and they work long hours. A lot of guys put in a lot of overtime. One of my coworkers who's doing service right now, apparently he's doing like 70 hours a week, which is crazy considering, like, I was doing like 80 hours when I was running my business on the side and doing my job. That's an insane amount for somebody who's working for the man. Imagine how much tax he's paying when he's doing all that overtime, all that stuff, right? And so we're going to talk about a bunch of people who, basically are ignored by society. They look down upon you in some way. Oh, well, you're just a whatever. You're just a tradesman. A lot of young guys come in and they talk about, like, well, like, girls don't really find a plumber sexy. And and despite what porn's gonna tell you, but yeah, so there's a lot of young frustrated guys in the trade and whatever. But so anyways, society's doesn't think much of you, but then you're expected to pay for everything and keep everything running. Now, this whole notion of basically the unsung hero, but now we're going to add on another layer where, oh yeah, by the way, everybody else is going to Everybody else is going to basically chill at home while you go out and work. But you know, don't ask for more money, don't ask for whatever, because you still have to pay the man, you still have to pay your taxes and pay for everybody else to live. So, you know, we're hitting this weird split in the road, and it makes me think, like, no wonder no young guys want to get into the trades. You know, in reality, it's a great life. It's a great, you know, if you like working with your hands, you like problem solving, all those things, it's, you know, it's all there. It's a good life. The pay usually is pretty good. Now you're going to pay a shitload of taxes if you're working for the man, so you know you got to think of that too. But sometimes guys go out on their own. There's all kinds of avenues, but our government is making it very, very hard to do a lot of these things. They are doing everything they can to work against tradespeople. You know, they took away the incentive for apprenticeship grants. Like, I don't even think you guys, the new guys coming in, get grants to go to school anymore, which is crazy. You know, they're taking away all that stuff. They're taxing the shit out of people. Fuel prices are going through the roof. You know, you think of the people who drive, you know, trucks and stuff. You know, there might be whoever, like your local police officer or firefighter might have a, you know, lifted truck and whatever, and some fancy shiny truck. But somebody in construction actually has to drive a truck. Like, I have to have a truck or I can't do my job. I can't bring my tools and all my equipment. Like, I have a threading machine. I have all this shit I have to bring around. So we're the ones who get screwed by the high fuel prices, and then everything we do ends up costing more. You know, if you do run a business, trying to run a business like that is crazy, not knowing the price of things. I want to talk actually about my experience with my business, and I had to pause it this year, and I'll talk about like why things went that way. But to be honest, if I was a young dude, like, I'm still gonna always recommend going into trades, because the lifestyle is there. It's a, you know, you get with a good group of guys, you're learning a lot. You can basically fix anything. Once you learn to fix stuff, you can fix anything. You work on your own vehicle, you can, you know, do your own plumbing, electrical, whatever the fuck you want to do. So you learn all these skills. But like, I wouldn't necessarily have a huge dream in mind of, you know, going into business for yourself and all these things, especially in certain places. You know, in my opinion, in Canada and Southern Ontario, because you're competing against people who the government is paying with your tax dollars, and nobody's going to see that. So like, you're not going to see that unless you attempt business and like actually look into where your money's going and stuff. But it is like that. So it's going to be a tough run, and it's not to say that it's not fulfilling, and it's not to say that your business isn't going to work. That's just to say, like, hey, you got to be realistic, and you should have the right mentality going into these things. And even for me, like, when I start up again, it's because it's something I want to do. It's because it's something that you know, I like the business side of things. So I enjoy that part of it, and I enjoy being responsible for my own stuff and all that stuff. But I'm realistic about, like, okay, I can't take on certain jobs, and I'm going to get outbid by certain crews and certain companies that are getting paid from my tax dollars. It's just the way it is. And until they reform that, until we have leadership in Canada and in our provinces, in the US, wherever, that reforms some of that and actually incentivizes people to do that, we're not going to have this robust construction industry. It's just not going to happen. They're talking about how many houses they want a certain amount of houses built in Canada for all the population increase. We had however many million immigrants come in the last couple of years. It's impossible. It's impossible. There's not enough tradespeople to do that, and yet if you talk about, well, we need grants and we need we should have small business grants and whatever, they'll scoff at you, especially if you're a naturalized Canadian who's been here and whatever, and you're not new to the country. Then you don't get anything. It's like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And yeah, okay, but I'm paying for my competition, so what do you want me to do? So that part is going to be frustrating. That part is going to be a bit of a slog to get around, but it's only going to get harder in the short term, I can tell you that. And that's one of the things, like, that's one of the reasons I paused the business. That's not the main reason, and that'll be a whole nother video, but like, sometimes you have to step back and look at things and detach and see things from the outside and see what's going on in the world and be like, okay, well, I gotta like, take a breather here and figure my shit out. And that's basically what I had to do. But we got a lot of people who rely on the stuff we do, and we do it because it needs to be done. We do it because we want that paycheck. We do it for our families and our future and all that. But it's really not something that people think too highly of. Like, people don't pedestalize construction and trades and all that, and young kids coming in, they see that it's tough work, and it's grimy, and there's not a lot of praise, and it could be a hard life, and they don't want no part of that. They're not really looking for that. They're looking to go viral on TikTok, or they're doing whatever. Maybe they want to be in finance or something, because that's the stuff that society deems cool. And that stuff's not really going to be around. Like with AI and all these things, we could lose a lot of those jobs, and people really need to start looking at other alternatives. And society should maybe think a little higher of people who do some of the stuff with their hands, and maybe there should be grants and opportunities for young people who, young guys who aren't going to go to university. We're paying all these people from wherever. Like, last I heard, people from India are getting paid all these grants to go to university in Canada. So, like, why don't you give that money to people to get in the trades? You want your fucking houses built. Give that money to the people who are in the trades, the ones who actually will actually go and build society, and they're going to pay the most tax anyways, because they're going to work the most. You think of the people who actually work, who actually care to work long hours, and who have the gumption to do a whole whack of overtime and all that shit. It's always tradespeople. It's always Delta guys. Like, they will work their ass off, and they'll pay all the tax, and that's where society actually gets built. But we'd rather give it to people who want to go, to whatever university, into their bullshit philosophy degree or socio degree, Like, what job are you gonna have? And then what? Like, you're not paying taxes. Half of them are gonna move back to their own country. So yeah, it's just crazy. And I just think it's wild that we don't have any incentive for young people to sorry, I pulling in the parking lot and a lady just about tried to hit me there for no reason. I have no incentive for people to get in the trades right now. And it's like I said, it's a good life. It's going to be hard. It's sometimes tough work, but it's rewarding, and there should be incentive, and we need those people. We need more guys in the trades. Um, right now is going to be tough. Like, we're going into some hard times for everybody. It's, to be honest, a little scary. Some of the things that are probably coming down the pipe in the short term. Um, yeah, it's, so no matter what you're in, whatever job, there's going to be some short term pain, probably because of everything going on in the Middle East here. Um, but yeah, like, if you're looking in the trades, like, all I can say is do it, and you're gonna gain more than just a job. There's gonna be a lot of skills you learn. You're gonna make a lot of friends. You're gonna meet a lot of fucking assholes on the way, but you're also gonna meet a lot of, like, cool dudes. But yeah, no, it's gonna be rough. Like, the next this year is gonna be tough for everyone. Um, and I pray it doesn't escalate, but I wouldn't be surprised. You know, I don't like making predictions, but if I had to predict what's going to happen, I'm guessing there's going to be some sort of attack. Um, you know, whether it's a actual terrorist attack or like a false flag or like a terrorist attack. You know what I mean? Um, and whether it's the small caps doing it or whoever, the government or whoever, I'm guessing something's going to happen, and it's going to somehow justify some sort of escalation, whether that be conventional or, nuclear or whatever. And they're going to commit um, some atrocity, because Iran's not going to give up. They're about as fanatical as you can get. And again, this isn't a more like moral stance. I don't think that the Islamists are good people. Um, but, like, it's no matter what happens. Like, if you bomb the shit out of them, it's good people are gonna die. Like, because they're the ones that take the brunt of all this. You're not getting the bad people who make decisions no matter what you do. If you could wave a magic wand and the bad people go away and disappear, well, you'd have the same amount of people disappearing in Iran, in Israel, in the U.S., everywhere. And they'd all be basically these freaking dickheads in the government that are sending everybody else off to die. So yeah, it's sad. But that's what I think is going to happen. I think there's going to be pain and hurt in the States. Maybe in Canada, with some form of tax. I'm sure it's coming. They're going to use it as justification for more escalation. Possibly other countries get involved. I know, like, China and Russia, everybody's worried about that, and we'll see. Like, I just don't know. Like, it's freaking crazy. Um, yeah, it's just stupidity. But we're in for hard times. Like, I was saying to my coworker, I wouldn't be surprised this weekend if we see over $2 a liter for gas here in Canada here, and it could just keep going up. And like if you're on medication or something, go get it. Like go get as much as you can right now, because all of that shit is like it needs oil. It needs the petroleum industry. It's not like you can't. I don't think people quite understand like how reliant everything is on all these places, all these companies, all these industries rely on each other. And when you throw a peg in the cogs of this machine that we're running, it you can royally screw things up. And 30% of the oil comes from the Middle East. That's not to say that Canada doesn't produce it, or Venezuela, or the US, or whoever. But like, if China's getting most of theirs from the Middle East, and everything's built in China, then where do you get your shit? And that's just one example of many. So yeah, it's sad, it's crazy, but we got to deal with it. So it is what it is. But yeah, so I mean, another thing, if you are in the trades and whatever, if shit does go down, at least you have skills, for whatever. Like you don't need most tradesmen have a lot more skills than the average jack for making things happen. Making their own power, making their own whatever. Often guys are good at machinery, anything like that. So those guys will be a lot better off than regular people. I'm sure, but yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, just like if you, again, to circle back, if you're a young guy looking for a good career, everything seems bleak right now. It seems tough right now, but it is a good career. It is rewarding in its own ways. It's tough. Like, you got to have some gumption. You got to be a little tough to go through it, but it's totally worth it in the end. And I want to get some interviews with people and stuff, and so that we can get other people's stories, and you can see, like, what other people think of it, what they've gone through, and hopefully any kind of lessons they have, and the things that make it rewarding for them. So yeah, that's it for right now. Anyways, Delta out.